Okay, welcome everyone to AEVA Queensland March meeting 2023. Let's get straight into it. Chief Clicker. Okay. Tonight I'll be doing my normal thing. We'll have a couple of people, or maybe Nathan, I think I just turned up, to talk about the fully charged event. Malcolm's here to talk about some electric boats and electrifying boats. Dave's going to talk to us about his home project where he's put some solar tiles on that look really nice. And then we'll have our normal social chat. Okay, let's run through updates to infrastructure. The free charges, no change. I think most of you are pretty familiar with this slide, so I won't dwell on this one. However, very quickly, the one that isn't working at Kelvin Grove underneath the soccer stadium thing that they have up there, this is a comment on PlugShare. Got a response from QUT transport team, very prompt reply. They are waiting for qualified contractor to repair the unit. No time frame yet due to labour shortage, so I hope they find one soon. So, that was March the 2nd. So it's already been out for quite a while, but I figure if that's the type of thing that's happening, probably happening across the board for getting charges fixed, as well as some of their reliability issues. So those two things combined don't help us. The Mount Omni one is also free still. Last month I mentioned that there was 45 check-ins in 5 days, and PlugShare only does 5 days when you get to so many check-ins, and there was another 45 check-ins in March. So I am planning to have the next EV catch-up here, but I might have to get there late because I'm working. I like to start it a bit earlier than 6 p.m, but maybe Sunday the 26th, I think we might do that. So, a funny thing with this one side was out, then the other side was still working, and now the latest PlugShare, it says the other side's out and the other one's working. So,
I went by the other day and one of the screens wasn't on.
Yeah, that's what it looks like on PlugShare. So, let's go next one. The BP at Nambour has put in a charger. The normal CCS, dual CCS. So we're starting to see more of those roll out, and not on that one, but that's close to like Forest Glen and nearby some other Sunshine Coast chargers. So Budrum's not really that far away, but you kind of have to go off the highway to get to that one. So maybe using the Forest Glen one if you're travelling up you go past Coochin Creek and stuff like that as well if you're travelling north. But that's dual CCS. Lutwich, just down the road here, has put in 250 kilowatt chargers, and they both have CharterMo, and they're 45 cents. That wasn't my car, by the way. And the West End one, you've got one right nearby now. So I actually like this setup a lot. I think that's one of the best layouts actually for EV chargers. Not always possible because you're tying up 3 bays essentially, or just about. But once again, that's another 2 EV chargers since last month, so that's really good. Yeah, they are. Yep. You would know better than I about that. The shopping centre? Oh, okay.
Is that a new area?
It's a relatively new shopping centre.
Like with Woolworths and everything?
Yeah, there's a Woolworths sign.
Sorry, I'm not sure of that one. But the comments on PlugShare already was there is next to no reception, so RFID card's good, or you have to kind of go up the stairwell to get phone reception to activate, so that's a bit strange. We've still got a couple in progress. We've got the Esk one, the Bribey one, and the Caloundra one. Next slide. Just a quick update on the Quesh. So I changed the slide from what we're used to seeing. So I've had a few slides where I've updated it over time, but now the red ones are just the ones we're waiting on. Most of these are the ones they announced later. It's quite interesting they haven't done Mount Isa, but I think there's a bit of a real problem with youth crime out there. I'm not sure if they were hanging off on that one. Yeah, they definitely need to do one of these two, and then Roma is an important one. Like just having one at Charleville out by itself doesn't make any sense. So hopefully in the next month or two we'll see these come online. But there's one at Charleville.
Around it? I think I texted you one of my friends at Charleville. She sent me a photo of the new chargers. I
Yeah.
looked on Function, they're already
But that's that one.
out.
That's that one.
But when I looked on the map, there was a few around.
Yeah, but they'll be AC ones, not DC fast chargers. Yeah, they're the green ones you can filter on there, but these are just the DC fast charging ones. So there is always secondary options, but
It was good to see because in June, July, there was nothing there.
yeah. But they really need to put Rome. Rome is a major link along there, so I'll keep you up to date on that one. Right, just the pricing update. I do this every month. There's not too much change. I did get an email from ChargeFox today saying they're doing the same thing that EV Networks did last month or the month before, where they're putting their 50 kilowatt chargers up to 45 cents. But we don't actually have any ChargeFox chargers in Queensland. They just handle the payment for the Gold Coast and Quesh ones. So I don't believe they're changing from their 30 cents. So, well, I'll get back to you next month if that's changed, but I don't believe they're changing from 30 cents. I wanted to put a little, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with hydrogen on here. I just thought I might put that as an example, but essentially at the moment, if you have electric, so this is the price per 100 kilometre. If you're electric paying 45 cents per kilowatt hour, you're paying about $6.30. Petrol's about 13, diesel's about 14, and hydrogen's about 15. It took a very long time to figure that out, actually. It's quite... because it's in kilos, and this is what it took so long. Yeah, I know, but then it doesn't quite work on this thing.
Can you add the price for solar as well?
Price for solar? What, like $8,000 to install a system and then buy a charger and then... Yeah, you can't work Monday to Friday. Come on, mate. Geez, what do you want from me? What are you saying, Nathan? You would rather...
Is it like a unit for electric kilowatt hours?
Yeah, 1 kilo. Kilos, yeah. I just thought I would...
So it's 1 kilo, 100k is $15.
Yeah. I was trying to make it a bit more relatable, but because then the next question is, oh yeah, how far do you go on 1 kilo?
100k. That's the basis. You've got price per 100 kilo, 100 kilometres, right? So
I don't know. Look, I had a lot of numbers in my head by the end of that stuff, so maybe it's simple on there, but it took a while to get there. Yes, mate?
Did you know about the two AEVA chargers that are at Jindalee Tavern? Because they're not on plug share, but they're pretty new.
Jindalee Tavern, yeah, no, yeah, they've been there for a while.
Are they on a different...
No, they're on plug share.
Okay, I put it in, it didn't come up, but I drove past the other day, there was two new.
No, they were in there at the end of last year.
Okay.
They're not at a tavern, they're...
Oh,
in a car park, yeah, near a First Choice or something, aren't they? Yeah, I made a few jokes about that last year, I remember. Yeah, you can stop in and get your drinks while you're charging.
I was going to say, is there a reason you went to Mount Omni instead of in front of the tap?
No, just because that's a Chempower, that one, and just something different. I haven't seen that one, so personal choice. All right, let's move on.
There's no cabin now, we'll just put it there.
From now on, it'll be 1 kilogram of hydrogen. But even finding the price wasn't that easy to find. Yeah, last month on the 5th of March, I did a meet up at the Redcliffe Library. It was quite well attended and pretty engaging session. I was meant to do a 45-minute talk and take questions and then do an hour with the cars, and the questions came quite thick and fast during the talk. So the talk actually went for about an hour and 15 minutes. And yeah, we hung around for a little while, didn't we, and talked to there was actually 8 AEVs. Some of the other people who just turned up to listen asked if they could put their cars on show, so that was quite nice. They had a Model 3, a Model X and another IMEV. So, Jan's IMEV and Hugh Thompson, I think it is, who's an AEVA member. He had his IMEV on there as well. Okie doke. Nathan, you want to give us a quick rundown? Looked like a good event.
Yeah, big event. Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. So went down to Fully Charged, and I just went for the Saturday, which was the first day. Flew down nice and early, still feeling it, and we got there about maybe 15 or 20 minutes before it kicked off, and the queues were out the door. It was hectic. They think that somewhere in the order of 15,000 went through the weekend, so it was pretty big. There were a couple of really good things that to see there. I think just overall it struck me that there were a lot of people coming through that were coming with families and coming, what I would call mainstream folks, which was really good to see, and kind of the point. The show was reasonably well attended by Chinese brands broadly. Everything else that wasn't a Chinese brand was kind of brought by not the brand. So Tesla Owners Club was there pretty strong. Luke was there. The AEVA team had lots of builds there, lots of vehicles in build, conversions, and some cool cars like the Audi e-tron GT was at the Origin Energy setup, but the major brands, if you like, or the main brands were not on display. It was a car typically tied to either an energy company or a charging company or something like that. Loads and loads and loads of charging companies, DC charging and AC charging companies, all plying their wares. First time to see things like the new Blueberry, the iCharge Blueberry, which is a Queensland company. If anybody who knows Christian from ex of Tritium, he's gone out on his own and brought a new charger to market. It's a very pretty, very sexy unit. It's a big old screen on it and stuff like that. So 120 kilowatt will split. So it's going to be one we'll probably see in some of the charging providers might bring that one out, and a couple of other bits and pieces. I guess overall for me, I could see it being bigger. There was whole space in there that wasn't used up, a whole area beside the stage. So we will get bigger. I think the next time they'll come out, they'll take 2 floors and a side wing and whatever else. I think one of the key things with the Fully Charged Live is about how they have speaking events. So there's probably 3 main stages where there was speaking going on. The Giga stage, the Mega stage, and there was a business stage, which was just talking, sort of B2B kind of conversation. I got to speak on the Mega stage. I spoke about vans and trucks. And what it's going to take and what it's going to look like, and it was a good session. A lot of those sessions were very well attended. So for the session that was before mine, and which was kind of like how to choose an EV, so Rob Ogilvie was on that one. He's the ex-AEVA Canberra Bryce Gatton was on that one as well, and a lady from CEFC who I've not seen before, Grace Tan, I think her name is. Anyway, she's been around the space for a while. They're all asked, you know, what sort of things to think about if you're choosing an EV, and then that was standing room only around the outsides, you know, and that was actually outside in a pavilion, so probably about as big as this room, and so it was packed and then, you know, the session I spoke at afterwards, Robert speaking on that main stage and so on, that was probably 3 times the space here, all decked out with chairs, and it was packed and standing room only. So that was really cool. I think another highlight for me was seeing the Formula E car that they brought in, the ABB brought in. So they had a Formula E race car. That was a good thing. I quite like seeing that. LDV vans and utes and bits and pieces there to crawl over. That was pretty good. Yes, mate.
Did you go for a test drive?
I didn't do any driving. I was there actually on business. I was there on work. I was dressed in my new work shirt and with my boss, and going around and talking to a number of different charging vendors and other people and whatever else, just talking to them and having him introduced to the space, because he's.
James had their VW van.
Yeah, so Tim, I saw Tim and spent a bit of time with him. So he had his VW there. That was really good. And you know, probably if I go into conversions for a moment, the Felton team. So what was Jaunt, now Zero EV and Jaunt together, Felton, they had a really pro-looking stand. That was really quite nice. You know, there was Volkswagens and Land Rovers typically on that one, but they also had some nice cutaways. They had like a subframe where there was a motor, an inverter, I think a charger was on the sort of like bits and pieces, and just wired up, but all kind of polished up and looking quite nice. So the sort of thing you might see at a car show where I used to do this before, you know, cut away a vehicle part, a motor, a transmission, whatever. So kind of like that, a couple of stations of that, and really sort of kind of lifting the game out of being completely sort of an amateur space into quite a pro space. And then, James with Traction EV, he had a couple of cars there, and including Tim's Volkswagen. And then down in the AEVA area, that's where Graham had the new, Honda SA100 that he's working on for a lady, and that looked really, really lovely. It's mostly finished. It's kind of, I guess it's probably 3/4 done. It's looking good. And he's also been working with a girls' school in Sydney, and they're building up a Suzuki Carry. And so they had the Carry there, and it was kind of, you know, again, probably 50% of the way through it, but enough to make it look like the deal that it was. And so that looked pretty good too. Other cool cars down there. So there was like a Carmen Gear. Michael Day had his Lotus Elise there. There was quite a few cool conversions.
Look, just regular production cars.
Yeah, so the kind of production cars, there was like the likes of MG, LDV. You had the EV Auto guys.
ET60 Ute there.
Yeah. The Ute was there. The two vans were there, and also the van and the people mover. So they've got like a 8-seat, 7-seat, whatever it is, people mover from LDV. Starts with an M, can't remember the name of it. So there were 3 cars from them. That's kind of like a professional. So same with the MG4. Again, there was 2 MG4s in 2 separate spots that you could crawl over. So they were kind of the professional car stands. But trying to rack my brain, but I think that was about it. From car manufacturers, Polestar. There was a couple of Polestars dotted around as well, but many of the cars that were on site are tied to either an energy company. So Origin had a massive stand, and they're all trying to play this lease you a car thing. Rolls eyes, and also how they're trying to, package energy for people. And I think that there was an Audi e-tron GT there, that they, the sign was, buy an Audi and get free energy. It's like, you don't need free energy if you're buying an Audi e-tron GT at 300 grand.
Hyundai, BYD, Mercedes.
Oh no, BYD was there. Yeah, sorry, BYD was there. They had DJ decks and a big old setup. So the middle was 2 cars and DJ decks, and just I think it was 2 Attos. I glazed over, sorry. I walked past it with the DJ decks and went, oh, okay, cool. What else was there? What else was interesting? I can't think from a car point of view, except for this maybe. This was pretty cool. Yes, mate?
There was a really good hydrofoil.
Hydrofoil?
Two-seater boat.
Yeah, don't remember it, but maybe so. The outside area, there's kind of an apron there that was direct. You could take bikes for test drives. Inside there was scooter test drives, so all that sort of stuff was pretty cool. Outside also in the apron there was lots of different cars. I think they were, private owners. They might have been AEVA team people and other people who just had locked up cars. So out there things like Kia EV6 and Ioniq 5 and all those sorts of vehicles, all around it a bit of a U shape and a JSC truck, so a decent sized truck, and also BLK. They've got this H drive, funky looking kind of Japanesey, Chinesey small bus, kind of maybe 15-seater, 12-seater, that sort of ballpark. Looks like something that would be in a movie or in the future. Anyway, it was there as well. But all those things were closed. You couldn't get in and touch and feel and whatever else. So, look, all in all, I think it was a good event. I think it probably did a little better than I was expecting, from a turnout point of view and actually a layout point of view. It was pretty pro. And I think it sets a bit of a standard for what those kinds of shows can look like in the future. I suspect the next one is going to be, 50% bigger and, better and that sort of stuff.
They're not doing it every year, though, are they?
I don't know what the frequency is going to be, but they'll do another one, I'm sure. It might be every two. Something
Question, was there any other electric utes apart from the LDV?
There are no other electric utes other than the LDV. The conversion ones were not there. The Rove were not there. C Electric one was not there. And the GB Auto TiVo one was not there either. So none of those kind of mining. I think the thing, and as a, in my new role working in a kind of a heavy electric vehicle kind of space, for B2B kind of sellers, it's not the right place to be. That was very B2C, very business to customer, public kind of facing, selling MG4s, amazing, awesome, perfect. But doing it, trying to sell, a truck to somebody, so, Volvo trucks weren't there, C Electric weren't there, those sorts of companies weren't there trying to sell to, fleets and stuff, because fleets aren't going to that sort of stuff to particularly buy the, I guess the closest were vans, things like the E-Deliver 9 and Peter Bernardos and Dave, they're the EV Auto vans. They did have a new small van, so if you think of like the EV Auto, what's it called? EC11, that's the big van, right? Well, there's now a smaller van. They had a couple of those there. They're kind of, I guess they're NV200 size, a little bit bigger than NV200, a bit like Greg's size van, that sort of thing. So they brought it in left-hand drive, they're getting a right-hand drive one, and so that'll be a good little kind of a florist van or something like that. So, look, yeah, I think it was good. I think those people that went there was good. The only other thing I'd add to that is I was quite surprised at how much of the EV community were there. So there was lots of folks that I bumped into that I didn't know were going to be there, that weren't actually exhibiting, but they were also going like I did for the day, and then you kind of meet them in the halls and stuff. So that was kind of nice too. It became a bit of a mecca for EV, some of the EV community, both the AEVA kind of side and then also the professional side. So I thought that was nice.
So just quickly, was there any outside of the actual convention stuff go on?
Look, I know of a number of like gatherings in the evenings and whatever. So Toka had a kind of a gathering, and I think the AEVA guys, they went off for a bit of a gathering, and a lot of the industry folks, they, went for a bevy afterwards and stuff like that. So a little bit like that, but I think again, that's an opportunity that could have been, brought together, and even things like, doing a little bit of a road trip as a bunch of people or something like that could have been, like hooked together and get in there, is an opportunity for next time. And whether they do it in the same place in Darling Harbour, or they go and take something like we did before in Homebush or something, a different space that's probably more conducive to, cars and easier to get to,
They do the Glen George Trophy? Or?
I understand that they were going to. I have no idea what the answer was, and I'm not sure if that's been turned around. So, you know, the Glen George Trophy being the person who's driven there the furthest in a conversion, or in an EV,
In a
but
low range.
in a low range EV generally. You get extra points for the smaller the battery, the more points you get, kind of thing. So I don't know who won that, but that's often won by somebody with a lot of time and a lot of effort. I might go for it one day when I get the latest sorted out. So look, I think for me the most impressive and exciting thing was probably the MG4. I think it's too expensive for what it is, but it's pretty good. It is a really great looking little car. I thought the size and shape of it means that it's going to be very accessible, and for those who maybe think that the Atto 3 is a little big or a little high, or, you know, that kind of like, oh, it's a bit big for me, this is going to be bang on. You know, probably the Cupra is just ever so slightly bigger, but that's what it reminds me of. Oh God, no.
Similar?
No, not even close. I mean, the Cupra is a Volkswagen.
Oh, Volkswagen.
It's the ID3 baseline, but this is an MG platform, so.
Get my models mixed up.
Yeah, no, that's right. So that's okay. So I think it's going to be a really good, you know, i30 Corolla, kind of maybe even slightly smaller than that kind of option. So, yep, that's cool. Awesome. And that was fully charged live. And I'll leave you with it. I'll show you my batteries later.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, Jeff was, I don't know why Jeff's not here.
What was your favourite thing?
The boat.
The boat.
Okay, well, you're going to enjoy our next speaker then. But we'll just go to the next slide, Les. Sorry, just for everyone, Glen George is a Queensland Life member, for those of you that don't know. So, you know, he has membership in the AEVA for the rest of the time. Him and Harold Waring, they're the two Queensland Life members. But the Glen George Trophy for AEVA events is whoever drives the lowest range EV, the furthest distance to attend the event gets that trophy. So that's been around for a little while. He's won it himself, actually, once before, I think in 2019. So, all right, very quickly moving on. EV events coming up. The 26th of March, I'll confirm that one. I think that's the Sunday from 5 p.m. at Mount Omni, as I've previously explained. The Gained Orange Festival I've mentioned previously. Not a huge uptake so far, but it has been confirmed that they do have some there's 6 three-phase sockets out there for anyone who want to attend and take a chance. And yeah, so there isn't that much event-wise coming up. Maybe I'll have to invent some. So I think I'm maybe even a slide or two coming up. No. Well, I haven't seen anything. Yeah, this is just a Gained update. Pass that one. All right, just quickly, general EV news. Lee Chantel wanted me just to bring to your attention that Electric Transport Industry Transformation Forum live stream is on March the 17th. That is tomorrow, yes? No, that's Friday, sorry. And I'll send out a link to everyone for that if you want to get involved with that. And then there's another one that's Australia's largest 100% electric car sharing platform, which means people who own EVs that would like to rent them out. That's AEVA, crowdfunding for capital. So they've got that on. If you're interested in investment in that type of thing.
Investing site, so they've put their information on to get some more funding for that. They're giving a little presentation about it.
Yeah, so I'll send out a broad email to everyone to let people know that's happening. The MG have announced that the ZS is getting a long range with these models have been out for a little while overseas, but I think we're finally getting it, which is going to be interesting because if that comes in at 57 to 60, and then the MG4, where my guess was 47 to 57, I mean, they're two different cars, but maybe if they're in the same price bracket, people have to make a decision between those two. But it was advertised to be 40, so I don't know how they're going to get. If they get 40, they're going to be a deal, I reckon. If they're 40, I just don't see it happening. One other last piece of general news. I enjoyed this video a lot. It was 45 minutes. I know it's perhaps not everyone's cup of tea to watch a 45-minute YouTube video, but this is for those of you that may know Sandy Munro. He's done a lot of take like a brand new Model Y and pull it apart and look at the battery technology. This is a little glimpse into what's coming. Now, he interviews a couple of guys who used to work for Maxwell Technologies that got bought out by Tesla and dissolved, but I think they kind of took the people. But just watch the video, that part's explained. But essentially they were talking about these cylindrical cells that are going to be lithium sulfur. They will have automotive grade batteries roughly at the end of 2027 and in 2028. And they're aiming for 450 watt hours per kilo, which is roughly double what we're getting at the moment. So to take any EV that we have outside and double the battery pack size, think of, the range advantage you get out of that. Yeah, well, they're actually, I think they're, on that metric, you could halve the weight, I guess. They discussed that there's no dendrite formation, which is a big problem with current battery technology. They don't have a lot of the metals, the manganese and nickel and cobalt. They don't have expansion of the cells, which is one of the main things that actually destroys the cells. They're extremely low risk of fire. They're going to be around about $50 per kilowatt hour at the cell level and at the gigawatt scale. They've been tested up to 10C charging rates, and they've already been getting 1,000 cycles when they discharge a full battery and 3,000 cycles where they don't do the full battery. They've got low self-discharge if you just charge them and put them on the shelf. I think he said someone did that, and one of the guys testing left one on the shelf for 5 months and it only lost 1%, so very good. And they're lighter than lithium iron phosphate. Yes, so amazing technology. I know that's a lot of what they cover, but when the applications of these by 2030, what I'm trying to get is, we don't often think of the Model 3 as an older technology, but one day it will be. And like the Model T, electric cars at the moment could be like the Model T. And, think about how far we've come over time. And what I started to think about with this video was that, geez, we could be looking at 1,000, 1,500 kilometre range cars that charge in, 10 minutes, and that's just going to be all day regular activity, So a lot of the things we have to deal with today just might not exist in the future, so that'll be fantastic, I think. All right, well, that's well worth watching. Just look up Munro Live, and it's one of his latest videos, if that may interest you. I know some of you are interested in battery tech. And I think that's it. We're ready for Malcolm to... So I spent the day out with Malcolm. We went around Coomera and we went and checked out some electric catamarans. And but Malcolm's been doing electric boating for a long time, so he's got a presentation to give us now. So this is some of his gear. Thank you, Malcolm. I'm just going to reset the mic a minute.
Yep. Thank you. I've started wiring to my apprenticeship early on with the generation board, and I also was a sailing master teaching sailing, so I combined the two technologies in my love of sailing to do boat wiring. So we've been wiring boats since 1986, and the last 6 or so years we've started specialising in electrical propulsion for boats. So just next slide. Go back to the fridge. You see that we also did fridges because in boat wiring they're the ultimate in off-grid tiny homes. And our largest power consumption was the fridge. So going back 20 more years ago, every boat we had to wire, we're always battling fridge consumption. So we had a fridge design, we had the lowest power consuming fridge. We could run that size fridge on two 80-watt solar panels into 45 degrees ambient, minus 12 freezer. We simulated a TX valve on the freezer side and got with a decent insulation, we got the fridges down in power consumption. We did about nearly 1,000 of these units in different shapes and sizes, custom sizes. We developed a custom making shape for boats so we could fit them in all the weird shapes we get in boats. And efficiency in solar panels and to all run all the house loads, because we're not just like a car. We've got the showers and the water tanks and the instrumentation and navigation gear, all our rubbish in boats over and above what you have in a house, silage, grey water to deal with. So yeah, for us it's more than just propulsion. Next one. That's my own boat. I've had her for 36 years, and for the first 30 so years she was diesel, and now she's electric. So move on. That was a diesel engine originally, so I stripped it out. Move on. I've built that long tail, so it's like you see in those tile and canoes, but a little bit more refined. It's a carbon fibre tube. Once I got rid of the diesel, go to the next one here, diesel out. Next one if you can too, thanks. I took off 50 kilos of accessories from the diesel. The diesel itself was 100 kilos, and all the other parts, the diesel tank, the extra battery mount was 50 kilos. So now I've gone electric. Next slide, thanks. It's about 40 kilos lighter, even including the batteries, compared to the diesel. So, and compared to pulling the diesel out at 100 kilos, electric motor's now only 10 kilos. It's a lot easier to service. I haven't got any water pumps anymore. I haven't got to do oil changes. I would never go back. So once we did that in 2016, we said, okay, this is the way to go. That's my throttle on the tiller, as opposed to just use normal thumb throttle, as opposed to reaching down to a lever, which you then lose sight of what you're doing when you're berthing. I can still hang on to my tiller and keep control of the boat and have better control of berthing. To give and also with electric, that's where I hide my batteries in a cupboard. With the electric, you have more control over the speed. With a diesel engine or petrol engine, when you're berthing, you're limited to the idle RPM of the motor. So you come up to a berth, of course we don't have brakes. We come in, we've got to stop over there. So okay, you have to judge. Okay, stop the motor now, you go to neutral when you have an ICE engine and judge how far you glide. When you've got an electric motor, you can pick a lower RPM and you just drive the boat to your berth a lot more ease and control than with an ICE engine. The point was my partner couldn't berth the boat with diesel. Now she can with electric because it's so much easier. And you can hear someone say, stop, don't do this, because you haven't got that thud, thud, thud of a diesel in the background. Next one. I just use solar panels on the tramp and leave that out because I don't sail every day. So I just trickle charge it during the week. So if I do a race on the weekend, and I'll use about 15% of my battery capacity, which is 10 kilowatt hour, then by Thursday, 80 watts is enough for me to charge back up again. I have got another 2 of those and another 120 watt solar blanket. I did a trip a couple of years ago up to Lady Alert and Lady Musgrave, up the bottom end of the reef, and I never went below 75% capacity on my battery bank with the solar. So, John here shows you nice charts of all the charging stations around Australia. I don't have any around Australia out to sea. Unless I pull into marina, yes, we have power points in the marina, but all the boats I do, we're pretty much designed to be running on solar. Next one. So these are the range of motors I have. E-propulsion, we got hold of them about 2017. We start with the smallest one over here. Is a Vaquita. And it's for SUPs, whether they're called stand-up paddleboards or kayaks. I can bring it over if you like. So you strap the remote control onto your wrist, and the paddleboard motor goes underneath your paddleboard, and there's different fin slots depending on what sort of brand of paddleboard you've got to slip it on or strap it on with straps in the bottom of a kayak, and you can move around about 9 kilometres an hour. And do that for, if you're going flat speed, you do it for about an hour or a bit more, and if you go half speed, you can do about 45 kilometres of travel. The battery's waterproof, and they're for lazy people. Should be exercising. Next one we have is the Spirit One Plus. Sorry, shouldn't move around, I'll stop moving. This is the Spirit One Plus here. It's our most popular. It's 1 kilowatt, but it's equivalent to a 3 horsepower outboard. I know the conversion is not the same. 1 kilowatt is not 3 horsepower, but because we have torque, we can do a different propeller design, and that gives us the equivalent in the power to thrust ratio. So this one has the battery on top here. It's a 1.2 kilowatt hour battery, and if I drop that in the water, it actually floats, so you don't lose it. On the tiller, we display the voltage, how much is left in the battery, and time remaining. So as you use power, it'll tell you how I've got maximum 1 hour and 15 minutes left, or as you slow down a boat. The power consumption of a boat is very exponential. So most dinghies, this is designed mainly for dinghies, tender dinghies or sailing dinghies. If I go flat chat, it'll do about 4.5 knots or 9 kilometres an hour, and that will use roughly a kilowatt. If I back off just to 3 knots or 6 kilometres an hour, I'm down to 300 watts. It's a very exponential power curve. So if you're doing 300 watts in a 1,200 watt battery, you've got 4 hours of motoring. So then your range is extended. In boats, we have very low resistance at low speeds. As soon as we get up to our hull speeds, resistance gets quite large. Next one we have is our Navi range, which we do in 3 and 6 kilowatts. And in that range, and we do in the 1 kilowatt range as well, we call the AEVA range, it can actually regenerate. So if it's on a sailing boat and it's sailing along, the propeller spinning in the water recharges the battery. So on a little 20-foot boat, we've got these on, a couple of these on some 20-foot cygnets that are made down New South Wales. And the owners tell me if they're doing 5 knots or 10 kilometres an hour, they'll recharge the battery about 4% an hour. So it's a nice addition. I've got 2 boats up at Noosa we're doing, called 580 Globes. They're as the name suggests, a 5.8 metre boat, and they're in plywood. And the owners of these boats build them themselves, and they race around the world single-handed. But in this race now, they can use these outboards and also use the motor at various times of the trip to help them along, as well as sail. And the motor, because it can regen, helps to charge their battery and their instrumentation, because they're running all their nav gear and their GPSs and their autopilots, all the stuff that goes along. So they can use the outboard to power that equipment. And in times when they've got light wind, they can use the outboard to motor sail along. Motor sailing for electric motors is quite unique, and it's something very hard to get across. An example, in one trip I'd organised a cruise from my club to Fort Linton from Redcliffe, and in the morning it was light winds, and I'm only doing about 1.5 knots of boat speed under sail. I add only a couple hundred watts of electric motor, and I'm up to 4 knots because I'm keeping the momentum of the boat going, and you get a lot of range. If we do that with a diesel motor, we get sick of the noise, it's inefficient, we put the diesel down flat chat and drop the sails. When we do it with electric motor, we've got less noise, It's still peaceful, it's still enjoyable, and we sail more. So motor sailing is a really good fit with electric. So then we also have pod drives, which is much the same capacities, 1, 3 and 6, and that's essentially the bottom half of the outboard, but we can bolt it underneath the boat and stay underwater there and not have an ugly outboard in the back. So that's, we also have shaft drives in the propulsion range. We have 10, 20 and 40 kilowatt shaft drives. They're at a 96 volt motors. The outboards and the pod drives are all 48 volt, which is a good voltage for boats because it matches in with all the accessories. And that one, the last one there, is a 100 kilowatt shaft drive motor. Next slide. We've got Bell Marine as well. We've just finished, as I showed John the other day, a 40-foot leopard cat, sailing cat. We put 2 sail drives in, which is a motor that goes in the hull, and then the prop goes down below on a riding wheel drive. And in this boat we did 2 15 kilowatt sail drives. They're 48 volt again, and a 16 kilowatt DC generator. So the owner can, the boat itself is 9 tonne, and he's about to sail around the world. He can then continuously cruise with the generator going. It's a 48 volt DC genset. Originally the genset motor was a Yanmar, and it was the same size motor that he had 2 of before. But now he's actually running the motor, the generator, for a quarter of the time that he would have run the 2 motors before. So his fuel consumption is now only a quarter if he wishes to run under motor all the time. Otherwise he can sail, and once again he can regenerate through a propeller if he's sailing along at enough speed to turn the propeller to recharge the batteries. We've given him a 30 kilowatt hour propeller, 30 kilowatt hour battery bank, and the twin sail drives. We also have shaft drives and Bell Marine motors as well. They're made in Netherlands. Next slide. This is Vetus. They're also a Netherlands-made motor. We've got the shaft drives of those in 5, 7.5 kilowatts and 10 kilowatts. We're about to do a 31-foot Catalina mono with a 7.5 motor and 20 kilowatt hour of Victron batteries. This one's a rim drive, so it's sort of like a pod motor, but the windings are on the outside and the magnets are in the outside of the propeller. So makes it easier to waterproof the motor. It's a 10 kilowatt drive. And that's from Vetus, which is a very large marine company. Thanks.
What sort of application for one of those?
I haven't had the chance to use one yet. I would be tempted to make it retractable, to be honest. I would make it retractable, which I'll probably start pushing for, because a lot of sailing boats, the propeller is drag, and we like to get rid of them. So that is ideal for taking up a square hole and getting rid of, and blanking off. So that'll be something I'll push next. Ocean Bolt, we've done a few Ocean Bolt motors. They have, again, they're all 48 volt systems. The top one, their shaft drive system, is in 10 kilowatt modules. Actually, they're calling them 12 now. They've done a bit of tweaking. They're 12 kilowatt modules. And you just pack them together to get more horsepower. The SD sail drive, these are, I think you call it an axial motor, pan motor. And then we have the servo prop. Servo prop is an extension on that. It has a little motor in the bottom to change the pitch of the blades. Because what happens is, okay, yes, we can regenerate with these motors, but the way the propeller blade is designed is not as efficient with the water going past it when it's been dragged by the water. So what we do with the servo prop is we reverse the blades so they're facing 180 degrees, and that gets us better regeneration. And when we stop, we feather it as well. The one boat we did, which I'll get further on, we actually got 10% more thrust in forward too, with the same motor, but with the servo prop leg. Yeah. So these motors are oil cooled to try and get rid of the heat, because the motor design, the pan motor, is hard to get rid of heat, so they have to be oil cooled as well. Both the Ocean Bolt and Bell Marine use Curtis controllers, and we water cool them. So I show you all Vitas, Ocean Bolt, Bell Marine are all water cooled motors. We water cool the motor and we water cool the controller. With the pod drives in e-propulsion, it's underwater, so it's water cooled. So there. In your car, you've got your motor there, you've got air going past. All my motors are stuck in a little box inside the boat with no airflow, so heat's an issue. So I like to have everything water cooled in our climate. This company's in Finland, and I've had some issues with them on heat because they just don't understand heat. In Finland, what? Heat's good. In the Barrier Reef, when you've got water temperature at 31 degrees, locked up down below at 40, heat's an issue for me when I'm designing a system. Next slide. So we heavily use Victron products, and one of the reasons 48 volt systems are good for us is because there's a lot of accessories at 48 volts, inverters and solar regulators and other gear, battery protects and whole pile of stuff. And Victron, a lot of it's done by Bluetooth, and I can program it on my phone, and my customers can look at it on the phone and send me screenshots when something's wrong, rather than dragging out a PC and trying to reprogram the batteries or whatever else they got. I can also, with Victron, we have what we call Victron remote monitoring. So I can see my customers' installations and then go further in and change settings, see what their solar's doing, the history of their solar. I can see what their motor revs are in some of the brands, see what their load is, see what's going on. And these are the apps on the phone. You can get the history for the past 30 days on your solar. So I can monitor, I can geofence, I can see where they are geographically in the world. I can have alarms sent to me, say the batteries are getting flat. I can have an email sent to me, hey, your batteries are going flat, and I'll ring you up. Do you know your boat batteries are going flat? So I can monitor the systems if they keep it online. Next slide. That's just some photos of the jobs we've done. Well, that's not really a job, that's just a paddle board with the motor on the back, and it's quite... They're quite fun. Yeah. And you got to, once you adjust the throttle, you got to brace yourself when it takes off a bit. Next one. That's the Navi range. Like for a lot of the dams, they're not allowed to use petrol for their fishing, so the outboards go well there. The disadvantage in these boats, for that outboard, we end up with a 78 kilogram battery, so that's where your sodium batteries to us will be great advantage, because weight is a killer to us in boating. The heavier boat, the slower you go.
What hours did you say that was 70 something kilos?
And that's a 9 kilowatt hour battery, so you'll get an hour and a half on that 6 kilowatt outboard at full speed. But if you back off, like most of the time they're just pottering around looking for the fish, then you still get your days motoring. And it's better to work in kilometre range. Yep.
What battery chemistry do you use on your boat?
On mine I've got lithium iron phosphate. Most of the boats we use lithium iron phosphate because it's safer. Fire is a big problem to us. There's nowhere to jump. Well, there's water, but it's a long swim home. You can hop out of your car and walk away and call the fire brigade. All I can do is jump over. This one here is NMC, but everything else we use lithium iron phosphate. Yeah. And we actually have rules for the batteries. AS 3004 covers us for electrical wiring in boats, and we're supposed to have the usual high and low voltage protection. We're supposed to have pre-alarm to tell us that the battery's about to turn off, which is very handy, and temperature control. We can't that standard stuff, and ventilation. But pre-alarm, I explain that, is before you're motoring with your diesel engine and it starts to foul on you, it starts to splutter and chug along, and you think, okay, something's going on. Will I get my anchor ready? Will I get my sail ready? Will I get to one side of the channel and get out of trouble? And give you some warning. If you don't have that on your BMS, on your battery, bang, you lost it, then you've got no warning. So pre-alarm gives us some notification that, hey, we're about to have a problem. Should I throttle back? Should I get the anchor ready, get the sail ready, and get myself out of trouble? Yeah, so that's the advantage. Those rules for us have been around since 2014. Yeah. The insurance companies are asking for that now, and to be installed by a qualified electrician. They've had a few issues of fires, and especially the flight boards and that sort of stuff on board boat and accessories, because they burn the boat down. So they're asking to be done to standards and being ticked off by a qualified electrician. If you don't have insurance, that's more of a hassle on a boat than you think, because then you can't berth your boat in the marina. So to get in the marina, you have to show your insurance. So if you don't get insurance for your boat and you've done the lithium batteries yourself, then you might be able to berth your boat. So, next one. On the side of the canoe, there's a guy up in Mary River area in Noosa. He offers eco hire of the canoe, and he runs one of these little outboards on the back of the boat. We can actually, for him, because he only needs about 500 watts, we can, by finger pushing, drop the wattage that the outboard maximum wattage it can use. So whoever the tourist is using the boat can't just flatten the battery for no reason at all. They get a longer range then. Next one. Mini dinghies. Fits on there and just replaces the 3 horsepower outboard, gets rid of that 2-stroke wine, or you can't buy 2-stroke now, but there's plenty left, and it's all now 4-stroke. So the weight is much the same. The battery's 8.5 kilos, the leg's 10.5, because it's split equally matched. And if you're trying to put it off the back of a boat, it's easy because you can put the leg on first and then pass the battery down. Some things you mightn't realise with yachties and dinghies, you hop in, if you had a petrol outboard, you hop in a dinghy and your partner's in the front and you start the petrol outboard, there's been a few teeth taken out. So it's much easier that way, just pushing a button. Secondly, petrol outboards in the small horsepower don't normally have a gearbox. So you get reverse, you have to spin them around 180 degrees, whereas electric, we can just do it on the tiller. So it's a lot easier to control. No noise, no fumes. And yeah, and most people when they get them, this one, everyone worries about the range like they do with cars. Most of my guys cruising go about 5 days before they even bother having to charge it up. So, next slide. This guy here, he had one on the back of his dinghy. He was a liveaboard cruiser in his yacht, and he came across a bunch of drunks on a party boat that had broken down. And because we spin a large diameter prop, it's very torquey. So he pushed them to safety with the dinghy. Next one. This is one of our first Navy 6s we did in 2017. It's a 3-ton yacht. And I like to say they say the Navy 6 is equal to 10 horsepower. I'll agree with that compared to a diesel, because it spins the same size prop at the same RPM. And at the end of the day, it's how fast you spin the prop. It doesn't really matter what's turning the motor. So that 3-ton yacht, we can push at 6 knots, which is normal. Before he had a petrol outboard, and of course the outboard was in the cockpit there, so the smells of the outboard were annoying. And now he can put it down and no smell and plenty of thrust, because we spin a big diameter prop. Next slide. So on other boats there, this boat down here is a ferry in Perth. She's been running for several years. It has 2 Navy 6 outboards in the back. That was just a dragon sailing boat up the top. The Far East one at a show, Sankey Cove show. So yeah, their uses are all over the place. Next slide. This one's a power boat made in Finland called the Q Yacht. I think one of Cannon Brooks' CEOs have got one in Sydney. It's got 2 of the Ocean Bolt shaft drive motors in it. The next slide to go. 2 of those 10 kilowatt packs in it. So it does about 15 knots or 30 kilometres an hour and extremely quiet. Yeah. The boat's been specifically designed for electric, so it's narrow and long as possible to try and get the hull speed up, which is our big bugger. Next slide. So just another yacht down at Manly. She's got an 8 kilowatt shaft drive Ocean Bolt. Did that several years ago. Next one. It's another racing boat down in Sydney. She's got a 10 kilowatt sail drive in it, Ocean Bolt. Go to the next slide. Same thing. It's his motor. He just leaves solar panels in the cockpit floor. He's on a mooring. He's got no power point. So solar panels on the floor. During the week, charges it up. Weekend, go for your race. Not a problem. Next. This is a boat was built in Noosa, as I showed last week. It's a 66-foot carbon fibre cat, and that was it's a maiden voyage down to Coomera. It's got two 15 kilowatt, go to the next slide, 15 kilowatt motors. So it's quite strange to walk into his engine rooms because they're carpeted, as opposed to a diesel engine room, you don't have them carpeted. It's now got, again, he had the sail drives. That there's a washing machine, little mini washing machine. 11 kVA DC Fisher & Panda generator. So he can do his about 6-7 knots continuous on the diesel if he wishes. This boat, we had all the batteries under the floor there with an inverter. This boat's extremely light, it's all built in carbon and sails extremely well. So at 23 knots of speed sailing, she can do 6 kilowatts regeneration either side. So it's 12 kilowatts back in under the hydro regeneration. Yeah, the two motors going back in, yeah. She's quite a mean machine under sail, yeah. Unfortunately, a year and a half ago, just before Christmas, she got hit by lightning. So we had to replace everything. Motors, inverters, TVs, the lot out. And then we're working away and the guy comes down and said, "You guys going to be here tomorrow?" And we said, "No, that's good, because we're going to x-ray the boat. We want the shed next door empty, and the shed next door that side empty. We x-ray the whole boat, because it's carbon. The carbon's conductive, and if you get a short or a lightning strike, it can go through the fibres and fracture the hull or mast. So all the rigging had to be x-rayed, and the boat had to be x-rayed, and then, so that's all being repaired now. We changed the batteries out. They were original Super B batteries. We've now put MG batteries in it. So she's got 28 kilowatt hour of MG batteries. Okay, next slide. This one is Shearwater. She's down Sydney. She's a 57-foot mono. It was originally had two of the SD15 Ocean Volt sail drives, and we upgraded them to the servo props, and that's where we got the 10 extra horsepower. You can see the seats in, well, the side decks there, and the decking here. We'll just go to the next photo. It's a very complicated boat. It's got a lot of electrics, a lot of hydraulics. You can pull all these sails in and out hydraulically. The tables you see here, they raise up hydraulically. You can see now there's seats here. They roll up hydraulically. So there's a lot of tech in this boat, and you can see by a fair bit of wiring. It's a centre border, so its keel raises up and down hydraulic. There's a huge hydraulic motor, it looks more like a V8 in the engine room, and the electric motors down there are sort of insignificant compared to the hydraulic system. So that keeps electricians busy. That's all these control panels down here near the wheels, and it keeps the Sparkies in Sydney very busy. Next one. This is a Ringle 38. She's a 38-foot boat, classic, actually a brand new build. We did this about 2 years ago. We put a 10 kilowatt sail drive in that one. It was probably over $1 million a boat. Hasn't even got full headroom. It's just to go around the harbour and impress your mates. Next shot. We did a fridge for it, and did induction cooking, because that's the thing now. We did balanced batteries, it's the motor. Because once we go a large battery bank, then we can get rid of gas as well. We can give them induction cooking, so we get rid of all the fuel. Instead of having gas, batteries and diesel, we can now just say one big bag of batteries, that's your fuel, and you manage it for cooking and propulsion and lighting and house loads, rather than stuffing. Because what happens with gas bottles, if I'm going like the customer did with a 40-foot cat about to go around the world, it's a pain in the butt to get gas when you get somewhere, to get ashore. And very often, because you're not in Australia, it's a different fitting. So you roll up with a gas bottle, and the guy that's there on shore, "Oh no, Jeff's away. You can't get gas because no one here's licensed to do it. You have to wait 2 days before Jeff comes back, or the fitting's wrong." So getting rid of gas off the boat is quite handy. And recently, they banned gas hot water in boats here in Queensland. So now we're focusing more on electric hot water as well. That's another issue. So, yep, next slide. This is another 14-metre cat we did a couple of years ago down in Nelson Bay. She's up for sale if you want to buy it. She's up here at Coomera now on the hard for sale. It's got 2 Ocean Bolt SD sail drives in it and a 6 kilowatt DC generator. She does about 9 knots under full speed under motor, electric motor. Most times he'll motor around 6 knots with about 3 kilowatt consumption aside. Next slide.
That was charging it there, or was that a petrol station?
I don't know, go back. It's just on the marina. All right, no, I'm not
Back
sure.
one slide, Wes.
Yeah, that's a petrol station, no, it's just the dock. Yeah, we...
Need DC fast chargers.
Yeah, no, we don't need DC fast chargers. Generator does it in a second. Probably filling up his diesel for the gen set. Yeah, back. So that's his switchboard. Fortunately for me, because of the solar industry, I've now got access to nice big circuit breakers and stuff for DC and bi-directional circuit breakers. So we're piggybacking off the gear that's been supplied to the solar industry to do our high currents. Because, you know, these motors have peak capacity 300 amps at 48 volts, so I've got 600 amps to control into the motors. So, yeah, and so I use the large breakers. Next slide. This is a little Signet 20. It's the sort of boat that can uses this sort of outboard. And yeah, just go to the next shot. And what they've done here is linked the outboard to the tiller. So when he steers the boat, he turns the outboard at the same time, which makes manoeuvring easier. And we can do in this range of outboard to a remote throttle. So we don't have to have a tiller. We can have that throttle forward by Bluetooth, which is easier because then you can have the throttle near you while you're steering with the tiller, rather than trying to hang on to the tiller and go back to a throttle on the outboard. So it's a safer way to berth the boat. So it gives us that flexibility with the Bluetooth throttle. Next one. Next, actually moving, you'll click if you move it. You go on to the centre of the picky. No, go back. No.
No video?
No video. You just go to the centre of the picture. Yeah, there you go. Yes. This is a motor sail, what we call a Moreton Bay Cruiser. It's just got a 6 kilowatt outboard in the back, 20 kilowatt hour batteries, Victrons. We've got about a kilowatt of solar on the roof. So she'll do about 4 knots just under solar, not using battery consumption, not net zero. Since that shot, she's got a bit of a short mast on her as well, so she can do a bit of sailing as well. So it's quite a nice concept for getting around Moreton Bay and enjoying the bay. Next shot. This one, same thing, it's a movie again, click the middle. We recently did you had a ride on this. This is...
It was amazingly quiet and just putting around like that, like
goes
you're
fun.
used to a 2-stroke, don't you?
Yeah, or 4-stroke. But yeah, the electric on this, you don't hear anything. We have 2 propellers we can put on these outboards, a high torque and a high pitch one. He originally had the high torque one on because it's a relatively heavy and horrible hull shape. But because we're also used to hearing the motor and judging, hey, the motor's doing something by the noise, when you go electric outboards, and this one too, I have to tell my customers, there is no noise. You have to wait for the boat to move. So what happens is they grab that and they put the throttle down. Oh, nothing's happening because they hear no noise. Then they put the throttle down further. And we told the workers when we were launching this boat, be very careful, don't do that. But they did, and they hit the dock, and they had to fix the front. So, yeah. So the lack of noise. So he changed to the high pitch prop, which is less torque, so it wasn't so accelerating so quickly, and less risk of hitting the dock. Next slide. So we'll put a battery in all the battery and chargers and DC to DC reducers in a fiberglass box, flame retardant, in the back of the pontoon boat in a waterproof container, or rainproof container I should say. So it's all a neat package. The battery there is an e-propulsion battery. It can link to the outboard and give you your range and take care of all the BMS stuff. So it's a plug and play system. So it's nice and easy to do. Yeah, that's the the 9 kilowatt hour battery. Yeah. They're 2 boats we had to fix up at Noosa, so they're for hire boats, Duffys. They've been made for a long time, but after several owners, they were broken down, weren't working, so we had to go in and put new controllers in and get them going again. They're all now, they were lead acid, they're now lithium, so he's got better range. We've got a third one to rebuild as well. Yeah. Move on. This is a ferry we were quoting on for Perth just before COVID. COVID kind of killed it. Used to be a passenger ferry in Perth for nighttime or tourist use. There used to be solar panels on the roof. But unfortunately, COVID put the end to that one. But that would have been a good project. Yo.
Are you pretty much limited to flexible solar panels?
No, I hate flexible solar panels.
I was going to say, do you have to usually make a choice to go that way, or can you put fixed?
I would prefer flexible solar panels. As you probably know, fail regularly. The owners like them because they look nice. And if you use YouTube, you would see like Will Prowse, whatever his name is, buy the expensive one because you get a warranty, because you will use a warranty. Yeah. I've had one burn a hole in my deck that I had just sitting there. Another one of my friends bought the expensive ones and it burned a hole in his deck. On the 66-foot Cat, we had to pull them off after about 4 or 5 years. We'd even put them on aluminium, and because you're mounting panels flat in the deck, you're building up the heat, and it reactivates the fiberglass and destroys the surface. So no, I'm not a fan of flexibles. Customers love them, but I won't sell them. Yeah, I know they like it for that. I just won't sell them. Yeah, if they want to buy them, they buy them. I won't touch them. Yeah, they're not good enough yet. Yeah.
Mal, just in the interest of time, do you want to skip through the next one?
Yep, go. We can predict how...
Not that quick.
That quick, yeah.
That was a little quick.
We can predict with a fair degree of accuracy. If someone comes and gives us their boat details, we can predict quite well as to what the power consumption will be. And as you can see there, it's quite an exponential graph as the speed goes up. Move on. Ships, keep going. Every year in Amsterdam, there's Electric and Hybrid Marine Expo, where they exhibit all the stuff in the bigger industry, the ships, which I don't do, of course, but it's quite interesting to see what's happening in the shipping. Move on. Most motors in a lot of ships are electric already. So most cruise liners are electric hybrids with heaps of generators, because most of the load in the cruise liner is air conditioning, refrigeration and all that sort of rubbish. Miles of batteries and megawatt hour capacity you can buy off the shelf from the shipping industry. That's an electric ferry in Norway, full electric. Comes up to the dock and just has a dump charger and dumps it, charges it up in an hour or so. Next one, electric tugs. I think New Zealand's got electric tug already. There were 5 of those to be built for Turkey. Keep on, 1 megawatt hour. That's the largest electric ferry in 2019. I'm sure there's something bigger now. Go on. That's the plug when she docks, that big green box. You charge her up. She docks in, that's the bow of the boat opening up, and then she drives into the plug. Hooks up. Keep going. Induction charging for that ferry. When she docks, automatically induct. Next one. An electric ferry, that's the size of induction. Go on. It's another plug up here, hanging up here. The ferry docks and then drop the plug down. Charge her up. Again, we're talking about 1 megawatt hour here. Move on. More electric ferries. That's quite, in Norway, quite ahead of us. Fast green ferry, all electric. Could be New Zealand. I think that's New Zealand tug.
There's more than you realise, isn't there?
In the shipping, there's quite a lot going on. Yeah. Keep going. That there is a bow thruster motor. Might go well in your all-wheel drive. It's only 500 kilowatt. You can use that for bilge pumps too on boats to pump water. So the power consumption on boats, why I say that is the bow thruster. As you know, with the gas peaking plants and batteries, if you're in a ship, you're going to come into port, you have to start your generator, make sure you can run the bow thruster. If you've got batteries on your boat, then you can manage your generators better, and then you can just click in your bow thruster when you want it, not have to have that generator start up and use all that extra fuel to heat it up and carry on. Yeah. So that's that. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I did spend the day down there, and we went through a few of the boats that we saw there, but I was nice enough for one of the gentlemen, John, to take us out on the water between boats, and like, you can just talk regularly, like, you know, you're used to it in a car, perhaps not so much on a boat, that you're just putting around on the water and you can just speak to the person next to you because you don't have the outboard, you know, you don't have to yell, which was probably the main difference I noticed, and you know, it was nice and smooth, and yeah, it was just a lovely day out on the water. But thank you very much for that, Malcolm. That was very informative. I didn't realise there was as much stuff going on with boats, but like the electrification of vehicles is just so widespread now that it's hard to see it not dominating over a long time, is it? So, Dave, you're right, mate. Dave's had his roof at home. He decided not to go with solar panels. He's put on Tractile solar tiles, which is very interesting.
There we go. This is the Tractile roof system. It's a fully integrated setup. The tiles are both electricity producing and hot water producing.
Can I just get you over here, mate? Because
yeah,
you're not on the camera.
that's a blessing. So you can see the way they're arranged. They're composite material with the solar panels bonded onto them. Next tile. Now these are some of the awards that have been won by Tractile. I might mention at the start it's an Australian company headquartered in Southport, which is what attracted me to it. These are some of the awards that they've won over the years. Next screen. This gives you a better idea of how they're integrated. It's a complete roof, very strong, and combining both the solar and the hot water. And of course you can see that they've got a much more attractive appearance to them. Next one. This produces 100 watts per tile. On my house I've got 96 tiles, so it gives me 9.6 kilowatts. They're quite large tiles, as you can see. They're 1105 millimetres long, 690 wide and 71 millimetres deep. They interlock with each other at the top and the sides, and you can see they produce 6 square metres per kilowatt production, 1.6 tiles per square metre and a litre of water in each tile. Next screen. It's all fairly self-explanatory there. You can see how they lock together. There's no penetration of the tiles in the fixing, they all just clip on. Next tile. So there's two types. There's the solar tile, which has got the solar generation on it, and there's the blank ones that are just fill-ins, or can be ordinary roof tiles. Underneath each tile is a water channel, as you can see here, and the water just flows through. There's a pump in the heat exchange tank down below, and that circulates the water through. Next slide. The solar efficiency declines with solar panels as the temperature gets up around 28 to 30 degrees. So the water going through this prevents that from affecting them and maximises the production. You get 7 to 12% more power out of these tiles than you will out of anything else. And on top of that, you've got your preheated hot water. Next screen. Now, they have a patented hook system, so the tiles just clip on, and that's it. They're non-corrosive. They can go from anywhere from 10 degrees to 90 degrees in mounting. They're bushfire rated, they're extreme wind rated, they're hail proof and golf ball proof, and you can have custom colour operation options if you want to. Next screen. That's how they're set up. On the underside you can see reinforcing ribs. They're very, very strong, You can put 250 kilograms load on top of them, and they'll hold all of that. They've been optimised for palletisation and containerisation. Next screen. I won't go through the analysis of these, but these are the comparisons. They've got something that nothing else has got there, and that's both the solar hot water and the electricity generation. Next screen. The roofs, these can be cut, the non-solar panels can be cut to fit for roofing purposes. Depends on the shape of your roof. This gives you an indication of the output. You get 5 kilowatts for every 20, on a 20 kilowatt average is on a 5 kilowatt system. But it varies depending on the occupants, how much air conditioning you're using, pool heating. It can also heat pools with the hot water. And again, the strength of the materials. Next screen. This is one I haven't gone into too much. That's what I meant by non-technical. You can just look at those for a sec. We'll move on to the next one. And again here, this is based on a Sydney orientation and temperature, and that gives you an idea of how they work with their various tilt angles. Next tile. These are the different options you can have. You can see the darker panels are the solar panels and the rest are the ordinary ones. Next one. Next. Here we are. Yeah, sustainability is high. There's the low carbon footprint. They're 8 times more sustainable than concrete and steel. Low carbon emission. And there's an eco indicator points.
Might need to lift them. Lift the mic.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry.
I thought I was doing ventriloquism for a minute. Okay. These are some of the detailed considerations that need to be taken into account when you're designing a roof. Each one is different. We've had a fair bit of experimentation with my roof, particularly in the case of flashings and things like that. You can cut the tiles, you can use them for things like skylights and all that sort of thing, hips and valleys. Next. Oh, I'm camera shy. Okay, next screen. Now, these are associated objects. You need an inverter, of course, and this is the thermal battery with 2 concentric, in my case, 2 concentric coils, and the heated water from the roof comes through one coil, and then the mains water comes through from the other coil and is used in the household use or for the pools. Even in some lesser latitudes like Victoria or Tasmania, you can even have underfloor heating with water conducted through there.
Did you get any? Did you look into that? Have you got that?
No.
Oh.
The last thing I want is another pool.
Oh, okay. But that's not hot water for like showering?
Yeah.
But you didn't get that?
I've got it. It's preheated water, but I have an instantaneous hot water as well, just for days when it's cloudy, or if I've got visitors.
Because would it not be better, like Nathan just mentioned to me, that would it not be better to have the solar, just use the solar that you create to...
Well, I very likely will.
Use electricity to heat the water? Yeah,
no, I didn't bother with that.
But it already has the tubing built into it, right?
Yeah. So I'm just using that. Most of the year I'll be able to use that preheated water. That'll be adequate for my needs. Okay. Next screen. This is some of the illustrations of how things go together. As you can see, the various things there. But the solar, I have only got one set of batteries. I've got red earth going in, and I've got 10 kilowatts there. So I could practically run without any mains power at all. Although I'll be connecting mine to the system, I'll be into a private power plant. Next screen. These are frequently asked questions. They're good for use in coastal areas because they're non-corrosive. You can use them for your car, which I'll be doing with mine. You can use them for wall cladding. The installation is done usually by a roofer, but we have some help with Tractile with those because there's technical difficulties if you haven't done one before. The Tractile tiles are made in Malaysia, a subsidiary of Tractile in Australia. The warranty is 25 years, and used for heritage requirements, I can't answer that question. Next screen. These are some case studies, mostly based around Sydney. Next screen. This is one in Bayview in Sydney. So there you can see there they're using it for pool heating as well. Next screen.
How does it compare cost-wise to a roof? I mean, that was the whole play with Tesla, the tiles, is that it was, about the same price as a new roof.
Sorry, Nathan, I can't.
Oh, I see. How does it play out cost-wise?
At the moment, it costs. At the moment, it's costing more than a galvanised iron roof with a. Well, mine cost in the vicinity of 74,000. Yeah.
Re-roofing a house would be 40s and 50s, wouldn't it?
Haven't got a clue. I've never looked at the alternatives. I just wanted this one.
That's cool. It's awesome. Thanks for that.
But it's only half the weight of an ordinary colour bond roof and separate tiles. These are some of the other benefits. Next screen. Oh, that's the end of that one. Now I've got a couple of shots of my roof just to show. This is how they're put together. Now just to explain, there's brass fittings like this to connect the plumbing from one tile to the next, and we've got cable here to connect the electrical parts from one tile to the next. They're mounted in strings of 6, and they start from the bottom and build up. So they're mounted on special battens, and they just hook in at the bottom on the tile below and onto the batten at the top. There's no screws whatever. Next tile.
Is it a single inverter or is it micro inverter?
Single inverter with the battery.
Okay.
Yes.
So it comes out in DC. It comes out like a normal solar system with fans. Like
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
So it comes out like a normal solar system.
Yeah.
And it's through with an inverter.
Yeah.
So if you get any shading, you've got nothing. Would that have
Do they have micro inverters?
No.
Yeah,
Just a single one. Now that's a drone shot of my roof.
If you get shading, you lose a string.
Oh, you lose a string, so it's
Yeah.
So if you've got to get the strings coming in, you might lose.
Yeah. There's 2 strings wide on here, there's 6 and 6. And these are the solar tiles, and these are the blank tiles.
Yeah, no shading.
No shade. And I've already checked on the shortest day of the year, I had sunlight on these until 4:30 in the afternoon in the winter.
looks great. Looks brilliant.
And they look good. Next tile.
The south face.
That's just a different angle. And there's a third shot.
Next one?
Next one.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, the next one. That just gives you an idea how they look compared with colour bond. Yeah. So now the next screen I'm going to show you is a couple of shots I took of a new BYD, the Dolphin, that's not coming to Australia. Can we have a look at that one next?
It is.
It is now. It wasn't.
This is a Nathan special, this one. The one that's never getting here.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to...
Are you going to open the garage up and show us the BYD?
No, what I'm going to do is
Have you got to that, Les?
superimpose that portion from 2 years ago when you said it was never getting here.
the next screen.
Hey!
That's it.
Chinese register.
Chinese registration on it and all.
That's right and drive.
It had been driven up from Sydney.
Did you see the steering wheel? What side was it on?
It's right-hand drive.
Hey!
Yeah. There was an Aussie driving it, and he had two young Chinese fellas with him, so I presume he was interpreting or managing the right-hand drive situation. But basically,
to be hiding something? Or?
basically they were up here looking at charging facilities. And
Is it just the one bit? Did you just get the one photo?
no, I got three. Next one, please. Yes. That's just the rear view. It's quite small inside compared with my Tesla. It's only 1,500 centimetres long, 1,500 millimetres long when the back seat's down. So I couldn't sleep in it, for example, which I can in the Tesla. And the next shot, please. It was all gift wrapped. And that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Dave. Okay, I guess we won't do questions about the roof, but we can talk about that. We'll break now and have a cup of tea and coffee. Thank you to the speakers tonight. There's some different topics there and very informative. I did mention last month that this month was going to be the QUT guys, but they've said their car was pulled apart. They couldn't make it this month, but they're endeavouring to come next month. And I believe Jeff, who isn't here tonight, I'm not sure why he's not here, but he has a C40 that he's going to bring in to show us, one of the first ones. So that'll be nice just to check. I think many of us are familiar with the XC40, but we'll check out the C40 next month. And thank you very much for tonight. Let's break and have some tea and coffee.